Hey everybody, Steve Ankerstar here, and today we're going to talk about the pros and cons of Bitcoin. Obviously, anytime you talk about anything cryptocurrency, it's highly contentious. Could be right, could be wrong. However, we started putting this in the book as early as June last year, went in pretty heavy in the October-November timeframe, and Bitcoin has doubled since then. And now I kind of owe you a what were we thinking? What do we think now? And how we plan on playing it going forward. Before I even start, I just want to tell you about the history behind my personal thoughts on Bitcoin. When it first came out, thought it was a bunch of crap. I really did. I remember watching The Social Network. I was very excited. If you remember, that's the movie with Mark Zuckerberg. Well, the guy Jesse, the guy playing Mark Zuckerberg. Very excited to kind of see what they had to offer there, and they talked about the Winklevoss twins and the origins of Bitcoin. And I largely sided with what I would call mainstream finance at the time and said, no, it is make believe. It's not something I'm interested in. But it was exposed to it there, and then thought about it for years. 3 years ago, I had a podcast, the On Time on Target podcast. I had a leadership series where brought a friend on that is what I would consider a cryptocurrency expert, and asked some questions for about an hour. Wasn't convinced. Everything he said sounded great, but it's still one of those. It's like I'm not convinced, right? So I needed more thinking time, more processing time. Last summer, I went to a digital assets conference here in Austin that honestly I wouldn't have gone to except for it's here in Austin, so I can drive down there. It's very cheap to go to, for the registration fee. And there I heard somebody that I hold in high esteem, Josh Brown, if you know Josh Brown from CNBC, talk very favorably about Bitcoin. And then Rick Edelman, if you know that name, is was there and talked very favorably about it. And then I got to go to dinner. Allison and I actually got to go to dinner with him, and sit there with about 10 of us in a room and hear what he had to say, and was very interested. He gave us all copies of his book. I read the book and started learning a lot more about it. And what I have to say up front is I've changed significantly, and I will give you the punchline up front. Is I really, the cryptocurrencies and all of the nonsense, the Doge coins, the crap coins, the Shiba Inu, to the moon, the stuff that Elon Musk was having fun with on Twitter, that is all crap, honestly. And I still believe that to this day. That is all crap. There are some uses for like Ripple, Ethereum. That's not the point of this. This presentation is talking specifically to Bitcoin, what is unique to Bitcoin, to where I do really think it is a game changer. And the punchline up front, which I just promised you, is Bitcoin offers an official separation of money from state. So if you kind of think, okay, what does that mean? Well, think back to the separation of church and state, right? Everybody kind of understands that. It's like, okay, there's religion, and then there's, we all have to get along. And that there can be a big conflict there. So, religion largely taken out of schools. You have obviously an opinion on that, probably one way or the other. That's not up for debate. I'm just saying there are opinions there. Well, this is where Bitcoin offers a separation of money from state. What if there is a money out there that wasn't driven by a government? So that's what I'll get to if you listen to the end. I'm going to try to dissuade you throughout the entire presentation not to invest in Bitcoin. But if you're still listening at the end, I will kind of conclude with where I think this thing is going. But before I get going, I do owe you the disclosure, right, of everything you hear in this is a financial education presentation. You have to do your due diligence on everything that you hear in this presentation before you take any action. More disclosure information is available at ankerstarwealth.com. But do look at, there at the bottom, right? I mean, this thing could go to zero. And I'll actually start with the first slide of why you should not invest, why not to invest in Bitcoin. And then, once you hear something you like, tune out. Don't listen to the rest. So I'm not trying to talk you into it. I'm actually trying to talk you out of it But if you make through all the reasons why not to, then you're probably interested in why to invest. But we'll start with why not to, then we go, secondly, we go why to invest, and then thirdly, how much is kind of where the presentation is going. There is so much to unpack here. This is not attempting to make you an expert. This is simply trying to lay out the thesis of why in your Ankerstar Wealth account, if you're at a risk of 65 or over, you have exposure to Bitcoin now. So let's start with why not to invest. Is it even an investment? Well, if you buy that it's currency, then, well, the dollar would be a currency. How do you invest in the US dollar, right? Treasuries, maybe, I don't know. So is it really an investment? This is what the SEC struggled with for a long time before they approved on January 11th, the spot ETFs for Bitcoin. And I think the approval in my mind there was that it's a, store of value like gold. So therefore we have gold ETFs. Why wouldn't we have a Bitcoin ETF? My personal opinion is we do not see an Ethereum ETF or a Ripple ETF or any of the other coins that are out there. I call them crap coins, but that's tongue in cheek, if you will. There's obviously some uses for some of these coins, but a lot of them are crap. I don't think we're going to see spot ETFs for those, but we do have them. And I think that legitimizes it. Is it fake? Well, I read a book about 10 years ago, 2014, Cullen Roche, and it was, what is money? And he said, money is a social construct. And I was like, what are you talking about? And, as I read this, I started to realize the dollar is pretty well made up, right? Just like any other fiat currency, it's made up. And, we believe it here in the US, and the world believes that it's the backbone of the world economy is the faith and trust in the US government, and the dollar has been leading that charge. And I'm American, caw, right? I love the USA, and I believe that, but I think there's a challenge to it, and that's what we're seeing out of Bitcoin. So if you think Bitcoin's fake and it's just digital money, it's just like, well, I ask you this. I'm like, when's the last time, literally, stop and think, when is the last time you physically touched a bill? And I mean a dollar bill, a $10 bill, a $20 bill. When's the last time you physically touched a US currency bill? It's been weeks for me. And then coins, holy crap. Coins, we don't deal in coins hardly ever anymore. Everything is digital. Your paycheck comes to you digitally. Your 401k funds that digitally. You pay your bills. Most of us either pay digitally online or we write checks. You literally are not carrying dollars. The only time I can remember to think to carry dollars is when I'm going to places where I'm staying in a hotel and I might want to tip somebody. So therefore I have a little wad of $1 that, $1 bills that I throw in my backpack. And so I have some dollars to be able to tip. That's it. That is literally it. Everything else is digital. So when you're scoffing, like, Bitcoin being digital, it's like, well, the dollar is like digital. Like 99.9% of all transactions are digital nowadays. Venmo, PayPal, all that stuff. So, it goes back to, is it fake? Well, I don't know. I mean, the dollar is the dollar because we all believe it's the dollar. We all agree, right? So just consider. Second bullet there, you don't understand it. Well, a lot of things we don't understand. And I say enough there in parentheses, because how much do you need to understand something to invest in it? Well, you just need to kind of make your own opinion. But I will say this, if you do not understand it and you don't feel comfortable, do not invest in it. Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency. Certainly if you're not Bitcoin, you won't be in the rest. But yeah, if you don't understand it, it leads right into the next one. You don't need it. You can go to work in the United States of America. You can fund your 401k, which is going to invest you in stocks and bonds at some allocation, which you choose or your money manager chooses for you. And then you can retire comfortably on that. You literally can live your entire life without cryptocurrency. You are not missing anything. No called strikes. To use the baseball analogy, it's like you don't get 3 strikes and you're out. You get unlimited strikes. You can look at everything and decide against it. You do not need this in your portfolio. So if you don't like it, don't trust it, don't believe in it, think it's crap, don't invest in it. Next one, hacking threat. Is it unhackable? Yeah, of course they say it's unhackable. I will say this from my military background and flying airplanes, that we would fly against enemy air defenses, and we were the mouse and they were the mousetrap. And I will say 100% that the better the mousetrap gets, the better the mouse gets, which means the better the mousetrap gets, which means the better. So what am I talking about? Is it unhackable? Well, I kind of think no, it's not unhackable because humans made it, which means humans can hack it. So there is a threat there. I could see something happening there. If there's a downside, yes, probably through some form of electronic manipulation, which my mind can't process yet. I don't believe that, but if you believe it, don't invest in it. It's going to zero. Yeah, it certainly could. I'll give you that right now. If you put $50,000 into Bitcoin, it could go to zero. So if you can't handle that, do not put $50,000 in it. If if you couldn't handle $500 going to zero, then don't put $500 in it, right? It could go to zero. It really could. It's been compared to the pet rock, the chia pet, the tulip craze of, centuries ago. Yeah, it could. We could all sit back and laugh. Okay, laugh meaning with a lot of blood letting, right? Laugh in the fact that I lost a lot of money. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I cannot predict the future, but I like everything I see, but certainly it could go to zero. So do not invest more than you are prepared to lose. It's a Ponzi scheme like crap coins. That's my term, crap coins. I mean, I didn't invent it. I heard it from somebody else, but that's what I refer to everything else. Yeah, or what's probably more than likely, it's not really a Ponzi scheme because you're not faking documents and creating it. But it's more along the lines of the greater fool theory, which many of you have heard is, well, I'm buying this because some other fool is going to buy it at a higher price. I don't believe that. I don't. But if you do, don't invest. It'll be replaced by the next best thing. I have to say this is also a very credible threat. With it being unhackable. Okay, well, I don't know about that. But yeah, could another coin come out? The digital dollar has been talked about and scared the absolute crap out of everybody. Kind of already have a digital dollar, so I don't know why the realization of what we already have scares everybody. But yeah, there could be something else could come along and take its place. It certainly could. Absolutely. It will be made illegal. I say the odds of that are now zero since the SEC just came along and approved the spot ETF for Bitcoin, but it is illegal in China, and when the ETF spot Bitcoin ETFs came out, if you're a Vanguard investor, the nanny state of Vanguard has said it's too risky for you and they won't let you invest in it. Okay, that's fine. So yeah, will the US make it illegal? I don't think so. If that happened, I think you would see your Bitcoin investment skyrocket, right? Because that's probably proof of the fact that you're right. It is a threat to the dollar, but we'll come back to that. And then the last one, you don't want to sound like a crazy person. I do have to I have to joke here because I'm excited about it. I think there's a huge future here. I intentionally try every second of every day to not talk about it, so I don't sound like a crazy person. Josh Brown is probably the best one. He sat there on stage. He goes, "I'm a Bitcoin maximalist. I believe it is absolutely the future. It is, it will outperform anything that we ever see in our lifetimes." He goes, "But I'm not going to say that a lot because people will think I'm crazy and I have a, function to perform in society of being the, seasoned money manager that, takes everything into consideration." But yeah, if you start talking about something too much, you sound like a crazy person. But I will say we've made some money so far. I think the future is bright, and let me lay out some reasons for you as to why. Okay, why to invest? The thesis. Let's skip to the bottom. The long-term thesis is this is a true separation of money and state. Right now, state governments make fiat currency, right? Dollars, dineros, Deutschmarks, pesos. You pick it. You pick the country. You pick the currency, right? And it's backed by that government, as strong as that government is. Well, we've seen that, historically, and I have 2 master's degrees in military history, 3 masters total, 1 in business and 2 in military stuff. And I've seen that humans are not always the best at governing other humans, and governments fail. They do. Wars happen. Currencies get debased. It's not likely, especially not likely for the U.S. If we were sitting in another continent somewhere, then I think it's a lot likelier it could happen. And I'm not calling for it to happen. I'm saying that there is a challenge here, that it would be interesting to have a currency that was not based on any particular government. No government can manipulate it. And, you would be free of all of those concerns. So that's the punchline. Let's go back to the top. the first four things in black, you want to invest in anything that meets these criteria. If there's a finite supply of something, yes. Okay, that is good, right? Each stock out there has a finite supply until the CEOs and board of directors manipulate it and dump a bunch more out. I can think of several companies I've taken a pass on because they just keep issuing new stock. Well, obviously, you don't have finite supply if they just keep issuing it, right? So there's a finite supply. There are large buyers. The ETFs got approved. Fidelity has said 1 to 3% would be about right for a normal person. If you even go 1% across all of Fidelity's accounts, that's an insane amount of money. I mean, we'll get to later. There's limited production. Not trying to geek out on how Bitcoin is created and blah, 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 blah. But the next halving, which happens every 4 years, is coming up in April, next month. So yeah, that has an impact. It reduces the supply. And then more people want it every day, which when you look at money flow, which a lot of times as an investor, regardless of Bitcoin, you're looking, where is the money going? Because that means that's what's hot right now. And that's what we want to hop in on, because that's momentum investing. If the money's flowing in like a huge wave, you want to catch the wave and you ride it higher. So limited supply, large buyers, limited production, and more people want it, large money flows. I don't care what the underlying thing is. That's where you want to invest your money, right? So the underlying thing here is Bitcoin. So there's only ever going to be 21 million. They say like up to 2 million has already been lost already. You can read up on that on your own if you're curious. We know the ETFs are having inflows of 10 times the production. So you know that Bitcoin, or you may not know, but Bitcoin is mined at about 900 Bitcoins a day. And the inflow has been around 10,000. So it's a 10x. Anything that there's 10x buyers than sellers, price goes higher, right? Limited production, we don't need to talk about that anymore. And then more people want it every day. That's that money flow. So that's kind of that's a money manager. Even if this were tulips or pet rocks or chia pets or whatever this is being compared to, you still want to hop in on this, right? Because that's where the gains are. And then you get into the green stuff is more of like the worldwide application. And when you think of investing, most of us think investing in U.S. markets, Amazon, Apple, Google, Microsoft, NVIDIA. These are names we know. They're names we can see the headquarters like here on U.S. soil, that sort of thing-ish. I know you could argue that point, but largely stuff that we're thinking about here in the U.S. that the U.S. economy will affect. Bitcoin is worldwide. I mean, there's more people thinking about it probably outside the U.S. than in the U.S. That's just a numbers thing. But two governments use it as their official currency. El Salvador is one of them. The Central African Republic is another one. Yes, they're small countries. I got that. I hear you. Argentina is considering it with their new election. Okay. And that's a G20 economy, right? So, I mean, I think it's interesting from a historical perspective when you try to look out. We're trying to predict what's happened in the 6 to 9 months. It's like, goodness, look out 10 to 20 years. And I think there's a real case for this. I really do. I think you could see more countries do this. El Salvador is already, with a double in the past like 4 months, is coming out of poverty. They're at the point where they can actually pay back the World Bank, the money that it owed, and actually come out of the third world status. It's crazy, right? Second green point there, hedge against governments and fiat money. COVID, right? We were hit with a unknown pandemic. I'm not going to try to say I knew at the time it was not as much as it was going to be. I didn't, right? Nobody did. But okay, so our response was we're going to mail money out to people. Woof, right? So if you start mailing create a dollar money out to everybody, you're going to have an inflation problem, and we've all seen that, and we're bearing that, right? Some more than others. Like I say, you don't, depending on where you are in the socioeconomic status, you may not feel it as much, but certainly if you're a paycheck to paycheck person, which the experts say is like 50% of the US, you're feeling this. I mean, you're feeling that inflation. That was because we decided to send mailbox money out and pay people not to work. So, and it turned out historically, we didn't know at the time, right? Not trying to say that, but looking back, it's like, that was kind of a minor deal. Imagine if we had something major, what we would do. And what sort of effect that would have on the dollar. So consider. Election day, U.S. deficit, fiscal policy. Wow. I love the US. I think we're the best country in the world. Some things have come into question, and I get it, right? So I'm 54 years old. I I'm at that age where it's the, get off my lawn. All future generations are never going to be as great as we were. Set all that aside. I really don't think that's affecting me when I say that, look at the two individuals likely that are going to be our candidates going into this election. And are we hitting on all cylinders as a government? Um, that's the election piece. The deficit, the analogy I use is, and I've run 5 marathons in my life, which isn't a lot, but it's 5 more than most, right? Is that when you start running a marathon, you hit a wall hard, and it hurts. And it's, for everybody's different, but for me, it's around that 6 to 8 miles point. 6 to 8 miles is where everything hurts. And what's weird though, if you just keep running, 9, 10, 11, all the way up through 26, nothing hurts at that point because you are like your body has dealt with the pain. It's still there. You're just like not acknowledging it, right? You're like, yep, I got it. I hurt. You've gone numb to it. I That's the analogy I use for the US deficit. It's just like, man, if you owe somebody $1 trillion, that's a big deal. If you owe them 2 trillion, oh my word, 3 trillion, holy cow, what are we going to do? We're going to, you lose all hope, right? You get up to 20 trillion or whatever it is on, the second I record this, we've gone numb for really how big that is. And I don't really see a lot of people talking about solving it. Certainly nobody that's running for office. So there's a problem there that I think we've gotten numb to, and it affects the US dollar. It really does. And then lastly, fiscal policy. I like to say nobody likes to be the adult in the room. And I don't want to overplay my case as the adult either, but I do like to look at things from a practical long-term perspective. It's just like, there's some things that just can't continue. And spending money, in the, personally, I'm a Republican. And the Republicans throw spears at the Democrats for spending money. It's just like, oh, wow, I don't know. I don't think you'd want to see the stats on that either, right? Both parties spend a lot of money, right? That's how they get elected. It's just like, hey, look at all this stuff, pander to their base. We spend a lot of money. We don't have it. It's concerning. It just is. I'm not trying to say I know the way out. I'm not trying to call for the end of the U.S. I don't know. I'm as baffled as you are, if you think about these things, as to how this is going to work out. But I am very interested in an alternative money supply that's not backed by any state, not just the U.S., just anybody, right? So last two in blue there's why, if I hit the I believe button on this. I just have, right? Because everything makes sense to me. It's crystal clear. um I could be wrong, but this is to me, not to again sound crazy, but when you think of tech revolutions, you think of airplanes, you think of automatic weapons, the things that have hit the scene and people went, no, I don't think that's going to work, but they totally made this huge difference, right? Think about the microwave oven. Think about the internet. Think about the smartphone. These things, when they hit the mainstream population, people are like, what? The internet, that's probably the hardest one to think, right? It's like, what? I don't understand any of that, right? There's not even possible to understand it. We use it every day. And even all the people who scoffed at the beginning now use it every day. Smartphones. Are we really going to carry a phone in our hand that does like 37,000 different functions for us in our hand? Are we going to carry it around? Of course, we're not going to do that. Yeah, we do that. Everybody does that, right? So when you look towards the future, it's often things that are the most difficult to see or the most laughed at, scoffed sort of things that actually end up being the thing that makes the most change. Consider. I think it's got that potential. All right. Let's talk. So that's the thesis to invest. I think I've covered all my main points. There's a case for it. If so, let's talk price. Fidelity said 1 to 3%. It's that 4th slide down here on how much to invest. If that's true, we could be looking. If everybody that had a Fidelity account went to 1% in Bitcoin, we're talking a multi-trillion-dollar market cap. It'll rival gold or exceed gold. It's kind of crazy to think of, right? So it's kind of that you got to open your brain into the stuff you can't really conceive, right? But it could happen. So how much to invest depends on how much you believe, right? Obviously, if you're with us and you're at a 65, 6.5 risk or higher, we're going to invest you in it. We're going to start with small percentages. If you're all the way up into our highest risk models, you're going to be up to 13% of the money you have with us. So that's how we're going to play it. That's why you pay us. I largely am the one who pushed this, and I'm the one responsible for it. So that's why I owe you this explanation. I led us here. So let's talk about our way out of here. Well, um, those first 4 bullets we already talked about. Vanguard says it's too dangerous, right? So they're not even letting. If you're with Vanguard right now, they're saying no, you can't even invest in the spot ETFs. Well, here's how I will sum all of that up: is we like it, you don't have to, and that's in uh, italics down below. We use the models, or we personally manage your account separate out of the models, which usually is just like a modified model, or like a core and satellite. Start with the model, and then get into some other stuff. So by doing that, we are managing your exposure to it. I will say right now that with it, if you started in October, November with MicroStrategy, then to GBTC, and then to BTIB, BITB, yes, if you followed along with what we've done there, we like it. It's gone up. It's doubled. There's so much to like here. We're managing that through the models. So, and with models, when you get an outside position, we'll eventually be trimming it. So expect it to be trimmed eventually. Like right now, I really like it. I want to let it see at least run for its current thing here. And I'm taking that risk, and blame me if I'm wrong. But I want to let it run for a while before we start doing some form of trimming. Yeah, there is a chance it's going to go to zero. So if it ever gets into to where if you ever lose an ounce of sleep, an ounce of sleep over this, call us. We'll reduce your exposure or go to zero and cash out. That's fine. Like I said, you don't need this. It should not be stressful. It should be something that you're excited about. If you're not excited about it or you doubt it, then we can get you out of it. It's easy enough. With the use of models, we can put you in a model. And if you're like Steve or David or Joel or Jaden or Mike, I don't like it, get me out of it. We just simply sell that position. Then we backfill that position with something else. So it's very easy to do with the use of the models there. How high could it go? Well, first of all, it could go to zero. So, factor that in. How high could it go? Well, it's sitting at, it just had 11% sell off last week. Largely that was due to some people using leverage. Don't use leverage to buy this. Don't take out money on a credit card to buy Bitcoin. Those are all terrible money management things. But folks are doing it because I saw Michael Saylor issue a bond for like $500 million to buy Bitcoin. So they're like, well, he's smart. Let's do that. It's like, don't do that. Uh, you literally need to be a professional and be able to handle the professional consequences if you're going to swing a big bat like that. So don't just use money you have to invest. No, don't take out on credit card. How high can it go? Yeah, I think it could go easily. This is that, next to last bullet there, 100,000. Yeah, easy this year. Yeah, probably before July 1st. I mean, it really is set up for it to scream higher. Could it go to 1 million? You're like, what? 1 million per Bitcoin? So if you really look back to if it has a market cap, a huge market cap, and it settles out at, whatever it works out to 21 trillion, each Bitcoin would be worth 1 million. You're like, okay, unit bias, right? I want one, but I can't afford to spend 1 million on it. Well, there's a thing called Satoshi. And Satoshi is 1/100 millionth of a Bitcoin. So what that means in English is if Bitcoin's at 1 million, then a Satoshi is like a penny, right? A penny to a dollar, right? 100 million to 100 divided by 100, so you can think of Satoshis like pennies, or sats as people call them in the lingo. Do I really think the Bitcoin could go to 1 million? I do. I do. But if it were to do that, it would have to become the currency of the world. So if you don't think that's going to happen, then don't plan on that. But it kind of goes down to the bottom. Term or HODL. If you've heard HODL, that's hold on for dear life. Largely used by the the Reddit crowd and the AMC folks and the not Hello Kitty, but Roaring Kitty. You hear HODL and you think, oh my gosh, that's crazy people. Well, I would say just trim or hold, which is the letters differently. But yeah, there are some folks out there that say you don't sell your Bitcoin. Now, obviously, those are the super uber believers. I'm kind of in that category if you don't sell it, but I also have to be, professionally manage your money. So even if this thing is, doubled, triple, quadruple, at some point we're going to have to trim, right? Unless you tell me not to. We have to do that to keep it. I think of when I talked about Apple back, over a decade ago. It's just like never go over 25% of your total portfolio into one thing, and I'm talking your total portfolio, your house, your business exposure, your 401k, all of that. So really kind of manage it so you're not ever over 25%. If you get over 25%, you do kind of need to trim. So that's what you can plan out of us is really nothing for now. If it continues to kind of go on its meteoric rise, then yes, we're going to have to trim at some point. So, all right, that's all I've got for you. Let's close on a couple of quotes here. The kind of capture better than I can say. Let's look at the bottom one first, the one in white there. This is Michael Saylor, Chief Executive Officer of MicroStrategy, says, New York City is the end game for people who want to live in the greatest city in North America. So, to break that sentence down, when you think of rollback 3 or 4 or 5 decades ago, it is, get to if you're a major player of trying to build your wealth, you get to New York City and you buy property, right? That was it. And everybody who did that made money and is still making money. And then Bitcoin is, that was the end game. Now Bitcoin is the end game for anybody that wants to own the greatest property in the 21st century. Obviously, the statement is up for debate. I do think he's correct, but that would entail Bitcoin being a worldwide currency. So a lot of ifs have to happen for that to be a true statement. But the last one is the one that I think resonates more with me, and this is from Grayscale. You can see Grayscale Research, and you can read the top part there. But the bottom part is, the dollar could depreciate. All we've ever known, at least if you're my age, is the dollar, right? And it's the strongest currency in the world. And if it depreciates, it potentially benefits Bitcoin from policy changes that result in a rising U.S. government debt. Check. We've got that. Erosion of Federal Reserve independence. Check, right? Because strong-handed president from the one before last, very strong-handed with the Federal Reserve when they're supposed to be independent. We may see that again. Who knows? Depending how the election goes. And the last one, a decline in U.S. leadership abroad. When you think of the U.S. dollar and its strength, we've been a shining city on the hill. We have been. Things have been going very well for us. I think there is some concern there. If I live here and I'm concerned about it, I can only imagine living in another country, having lots of our debt with the United States, and then watching the show that's going on. Whew, that's but largely they haven't had any other alternative. What are you going to do? Go to Russia? Are you going to go to China? Those are communist states. Like, not good, right? Where else do you go? Bitcoin's starting to offer an alternative to that, which again only increases the attractiveness of it. So I will leave you with that. I prepared this on behalf of myself. These are my opinions alone. When you talk to your Ankerstar wealth advisor, here we'll go to the disclosure while I'm talking my way back, is when your Ankerstar wealth advisor in their talks directly with you may have a slightly different or a nuanced opinion of this, and that's okay, right? Work with your advisor, come up with a team plan of what you want to do. And it's doubled in a lot of accounts. If you want to take the gains now, that's fine. I'm not telling you that's a mistake. You have to do what's best for you. So really do have that conversation. Talk with your advisor. We're all different, and there's strength in that diversity. So with that, it's high risk, high reward. There you go. There's no called strikes. You don't need it. If you take a pass on Bitcoin, you'll be just fine. Beware of FOMO, which means fear of missing out, right? People are like laugh at it when it's 70K, but then when it hits 100K and everybody's got to have it, right? So don't fall into that trap. There is a certain point when you just have to say you missed it, and then you move on from there. So, all right. Thank you so much for listening in, and we will talk to you next time. Bye.